just you get to choose. Right? Like here's the scenario. The environment gives us something which can be perceived as negative, can be perceived as not working, can be perceived as problematic. The world's ending. But we get to choose to see it like that, or we get to choose to see it as an opportunity.
So clearly that it's my responsibility now to do that for other people. If I have information and, other people's success is my success and vice versa.
Because you know what? Like, the challenges or the roadblocks are the journey themselves.
There's no big things. It's all little things compounding on top of each other. All right. Here we are again. I wanted to think of a different way to kick off an episode with us, Coach, because I wonder, if we feel the presence of being on a stage or knowing that someone is going to watch our conversation, if we act differently, if we take on a new identity. So I kind of wanted to scrap any intro of welcome or here we are again. I guess what I came up with it was okay. That was how I started today.
Right.
But I don't know, just have a conversation here and see if I can, it's interesting. I don't know if I can shed the idea that I know people are going to watch this. And I don't know how that affects me because when these thoughts come through, they're certainly, well, I don't know if they're mine, but they're the ones that are in my head right now. And I just wonder if that weren't the case where somebody would watch it, would I act differently? Would I speak differently? Would I have different thoughts? Would I approach the conversation differently? Am I way too far in the weeds here, or let's steer this a little bit?
I actually wrote what I was going to try and present as a TED Talk idea on just this subject.
Oh.
Are we acting? When are we acting and when are we not acting? What is acting? And as you were telling me that, I'm thinking the same thing, right? I was standing up, now I'm sitting down. Am I trying to be someone I'm different now because I'm doing that? But you can't help but be influenced by the things that are around you. That's how we're social creatures. And it's about a difference in energy. So it's more around what's the energy that you want to be resonating on level of, but it doesn't make it false if that's what you're leading to, right? Or how can I make it more real? It's like, well, it's always real. It's always exactly what's happening right now. It's always the thing that's happening right now. That's how I think about it. But I think the more that you could, I think if we were doing this in front of a live audience, that would change things as well. They can't, no, and I wouldn't want it to be the same because you want a different energy. Not good, not bad, just different. And then, there isn't a question of quality, of course, as well, but that doesn't, quality for the purpose of entertainment or depth of thought, but not less intrinsic worth, perhaps. Am I in the same ballpark of how you're thinking about this?
Yes, definitely. The acting part hits home for me. And then so does the living in the moment, because I think ultimately what is a small unconscious goal of mine is to, it's like a paradox, right? Is to eliminate your self-awareness. You want to be so self-aware, but you don't want to even think about that you're aware. So, right. We're just, you and I are talking, right? That's how this podcast is created. And there's a shuffling in and out of the awareness of oh yeah, we're recording versus I'm talking to you, I'm listening, I'm validating, and I'm also sharing my thoughts and feelings and opinions. So it's like a dance, right?
It's exactly what it is. Exactly what it is. It's a dance, it's a melody, it's a song, and you've got one side of it, I've got the other side of it, and then we're going back and forth, and sometimes we've got both of it, sometimes we've got neither of it. Yeah, it's like we're trying to spin all the plates and change the revolutions, the RPMs on those plates. And we haven't decided which RPMs are right, which plates are more important. We're just deciding it as we're going. And that's why you can tell if something's scripted versus unscripted, because it feels different. It doesn't feel like a melody.
Yes.
Maybe that's what we think about what acting is, as in like in a TV show or a movie, is that these people are so good at doing it, they can make something that's scripted feel like it's real.
They're acting like they're not acting.
Right. They're actually yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so you can get twisted up in that, which I think is a fun place to be.
Yeah. I watched a reel recently that said something about there's no such thing as results. Like results are out of our control. I think of our lag dials and our lead dials, right? Our lag dials are something technically we don't have control over.
Mm-hmm.
And so the video talks about like go back to what you can control. And so I think about that with podcasting. Results might be number of viewers, responses from people who our conversation touches or moves, like they might reach out to us. Like those are all things out of our control. What's within our control is to have the conversation and to be present and to like this is where it molds and blends for me, is that I want to add value and I want to come up with content that is valuable for others. And the way to do that is to discuss content that is valuable to and for me and for you. And so that, and that way it's like a rigged game of win-win. Like I can drop my intention of thinking about how others might perceive it and hoping that they gain value and just sit in the pocket here and push the conversation, not push, but like guide it or make sure that it's intriguing to me and I'm getting value out of it, which is exactly what we're doing right now, right? This is a topic that is something that I think about. And by nature, if I'm thinking about it, somebody else in the world has to be thinking about it. And to your point, or to this conversation, I brought it up and you had already thought about it. You were coming up with content about it, a TED Talk about it. So by that nature, it's valuable intrinsically. And then there's extrinsic value that's attached to it as well.
And then the next level of rigging the game is to direct the content to someone that you think might resonate with more than someone else. Because there's scratch your own itch. When I think about my banking career, a lot of what didn't really fit for me was the fact that I was playing it like a game, but I was playing it like it's someone else's game. So I'm always checking in, not actually, but figuratively asking about like, is it right? Is this the right thing? Because it wasn't this is where I'm going. I know how I want to play this. It was more like, how do I play with you in your game so I can beat you at your game? And it's just inherently, you can't win when you do that.
Yeah, just a quick interjection. I had that thought recently with, it's just like the rat race, right? So there's adrenaline or dopamine that you get from like those little wins, but you never stop playing. And so is that a game that we want to be playing? Is one that never ends? Like, because there might be these little tiny wins, but there's no ultimate win. Like that, it just feels tiresome to me. That might be the word, or like exhausting to keep running from one thing to the other, seeking this validation out and getting little hits of the validation, but never being fulfilled with it, right? Because we keep playing because we don't like there's something lacking or missing that we seem to be seeking.
Yeah. Yeah, you're playing because of the result rather than playing because you want to play. Because the easiest thing should be to be yourself and do the thing that you want to do. And then you could argue that descends into just being reckless, or just pleasure seeking for pleasure's sake. But that's not actually what we want. We want fulfillment and sustainability, long-term depth of relationships with people.
Yeah.
So it might feel like that for a while, and it might be useful for a while, but people left to their own devices will find out, I believe. And maybe they don't live long enough to find out, but if you play long enough, you'll find out that you want to play the deep game. You want to fish for the fish that are 50 feet under the sea, because that's the only ones that are worth hooking.
Right.
I think we all have that direction somewhere.
I wrote down playing for the result versus playing the game you actually want to play. And And I think you just now that I was going to maybe ask you to come up with a hypothetical or even a real life scenario of what that is. I think in business, it's what you just mentioned. Like the result is the revenue numbers, the income is the financials. For whatever reason, that has become so normalized that it's almost impossible. Any company that lists itself on the stock market, for example, like they exist to satisfy their shareholders, and what shareholders, at least is what is perceived, care about is results, right? So like it just tells me that there's something wrong with that structure and the way that we measure how a company is successful, and to what you just got. Like I think it is the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic value. Like what we're really doing and why most people get into business in the first place anyway is to add value to people's lives, whether that's a pharmaceutical, like trying to heal something, or like, right, we're in something to make people's lives better. And we're most or best at that when we're solving a problem or accomplishing or playing a game, I might say, of something that matters to us or is intrinsically valued to us.
Yeah. So, and then things happen at scale. So to use example of the stock market, it's a secondary game. In order for that company originally to be successful, it had to have been playing a game that was delivering value to people at a very real level.
Right.
And then once they grow to a certain level of scale, that's still true when the rubber meets the road. There's also a momentum that is powering that through. Like it's the only game in town, so you have to do it, right? And so it becomes less about delivering the ultimate value and becomes more around just a different connection, right? And so if the stock market there is purely capitalism and it is there based on results and money. So if you're buying stock in a company that's in the stock market, it's big enough that you don't need to care about really what the company does, just that they make money. It's just too big to have that influence. The real juice comes from investing into a startup because you believe in the person that started it and their message and what they're doing. I don't think there's anything wrong with the other way around, by the way, but it's just a different game.
Right.
And you could draw. And if you do that to a high level, you could draw some other things from that because it means you could give back in a different way as well. So, like again, as normal, the answer is it depends, and yes, and
Yeah. Which is maybe another paradox. It's like, no, I want an answer versus having it be this way is like you can always win it. There's just no like black and white, but the win is like a spectrum of win.
because so I had someone yesterday tell me, hey, when I first got into my business, in the early days, I was really focused on the number. He said, what I've learned is it's not all about the number. He said, for me right now, it's three things. It's efficiency, it's effectiveness, and trying to learn more stuff. Like, how do I get deeper? And so I love that. But in order to know that you have, so let's take the first one, efficiency. In order to know, because efficiency is a feeling. Do you feel now more efficient? I don't know. Like, well, what did you do? I don't know. In order to get it, you've got to define it. And then if you define it, you bring it back to the result and the number or something that's measurable.
Yeah.
All right. You want more efficiency. What does efficiency look like for you? Well, I'll know I'm more efficient when I'm still running the same amount of client meetings, but all my admin is done by someone else. So I'm looking at how much time I've invested, so it's measurable. How much money I'm going to get from that time invested is measurable. So you've got a game of subjective and objective all the time. Things that are easy to measure are much easier to start with because they can be understood. Things that really matter are less easier to measure, but in order to define them and get them, you have to measure them.
Paradox. So what's is a takeaway that is just how it has to be, or that there's another way to do it, or that we make the best of that?
Well, is there a problem to solve? Like, I mean, the best study life is what's real. And so if you feel like that you're stuck, that you want more efficiency, then the way to get more efficiency is to define what more efficiency is. And then be clear. Okay, if more efficiency is, okay, I only work 20 hours a week but have the same amount of money, therefore I feel efficient. And then work towards that and then get it. It's true that I've been working for the last 3 months for 20 hours of work for the same money. I did it. I did the thing that I said I was going to do. But I still don't feel it's sufficient. It's like, well, then, like, you've got no integrity. You've got no integrity. You built a game that you said there was this, and now you're saying it's not true. So which is it?
Yeah. And the word that's coming through for me when you say, well, so when I think of how you describe that, well, define it, right? So I cringe a little bit, right? Because it's, well, there's positives and negatives to that, right? Like, and what I wrote down was intentionality. So defining it clarifies what you're actually wanting. I just had this conversation with a client this morning where we're setting goals and it felt like the conversation was getting diluted into end result too much. And I brought it back to, like, what feeling is this going to create when we achieve it? Like, what are we going for here? And so I think that is the actual defining that we're looking for with anything, with business, with stock market, with investing, like however we want to define success, even efficiency, effectiveness, is we're doing things because we want it to feel good or feel a certain way, right? So the more intentional we can be, like, that is our greatest power, is the power of our focus and what we set out to accomplish. Because once we do that, once we call out what it is, then we will not stop until we get that thing, especially if we're super committed to it. So it just begs the question, like, what's worthy, what's the highest version of intentionality to play? And that was the point with my client this morning, with, like, well, what's the feeling that's associated with this? Because then when we start to define what we think it is, we could be completely wrong. So what I've learned to do is use intentionality around the feelings I want to feel, whatever that might mean, right? It could be different in different stages, whatever. Like, you could define that in different ways, and then get out of the way of how you think it might be, and now set a course of action. But we're open to other options along the way that might be better. And that's actually the purpose of it, I think, is that we can't find the other options if we don't start. So we have to start and move in a direction. And once we're on the way, we have to be, I don't know, humble, like whatever it is, open enough to admit that what we've come up with and how we thought it would look might actually be very wrong. And that if there's a new opportunity, we drop that resistance, or we analyze that resistance and see, it's like a value game. Like, is it valuable enough for me to go in that direction, even though I thought I wanted this thing over here?
You're constantly testing and checking. Am I on track? Testing if I'm on track, and then also testing if that's the track you want to be on. Oh, I am on track. Whereas if I'm off track, okay, get on track. But if I'm off track, it's also a question of, okay, do I want to get back on that track? And if I'm on the track, I've got to go, am I on the right track? And so you're constantly playing that game to check, and that's what appears to be a straight line. If you do it quick enough, often enough, it will be relatively straight, but you're never actually on course. And to tie back what you said before, right? So if there's in that example I gave that client, it was that I realized that it wasn't about the numbers; it was about, I want efficiency of that first example. It also, and then we have to bring the efficiency back to something that's measurable, but it also works the other way around, to a point. If it was still stuck on the number, then we'd have to bring the number up to something that was a feeling. So you need both. Mm-hmm. It's like, why do you want that? Like, oh, that's why, money is a good proxy for a lot of things, but it is just a proxy for value, a proxy for feelings, or it's just the way we transfer value between people or businesses.
Yeah.
I want money. You want, the classic Tony Robbins one is like, well, you want 100 million pieces of paper with notable dead faces on there. You want what you want. You don't want the things you can buy. You want the things that you want the feelings that go with those things. Ultimately, it's how we feel is what we want. We want feelings. That's it. But you can't put your arms around feelings. So it's like, I want a boat. You can put your arm around a boat, kind of. not a feeling. It's like, well, what would it feel like when you've got a boat? And here is the juice comes from the feelings, and not only the feelings that you think that you're going to have, but the feelings you could have after that as well. And that's where we get a lot of leverage in coaching, is asking people what they want, dialing it up from a number, from a measurable, to something that's like effectiveness or efficiency. They're quite benign. So you want to dive into, like, why efficiency? What does that mean to you? Why is efficiency important? And then you're likely going to get some sort of story about how they grew up, what happened to them before. Okay, so you want to do that because you want to be like your dad, or you saw that before, your dad didn't do that. You want to be that person. What does it mean to you to be that person? Well, I'm that person. I'm this, this, and that. And suddenly you've now gone from a number to a word to a feeling to an identity, and then ultimately a legacy. Well, if you keep being that person, who will you be when you're in your deathbed? Who will people think about you as? And then you can, in a real way, tie back how someone feels on their deathbed to making a phone call to a prospect.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was part of our conversation this morning with my client, with like get the feeling now, right? That you think you want, like, and I think that's my definition of like manifesting, or like intention seeking. I guess I think I'm looking for a different perspective on that, because that's like the cliche, which we love cliches in this podcast.
We do.
Like, start with the feeling. That's how you manifest. Like, how can I want to think about that in a different way, in a way that makes me feel better. There's feeling right there. But like, I have some sort of resistance to, okay, just think in the future of how I want to feel, constantly stay in tune with that vibration, and then naturally the universe will give me opportunity to have that feeling, because I'm looking for it, because I'm already vibrating at that level. Is there something wrong with that, or how can we like expand that? I want a new, higher perspective with that one. Put you on the hot seat here, Coach.
Oh, well, I think tying the subjective to the objective together makes it stronger, right? I want this feeling, and how I represent that feeling in the physical world is this. So I've got a tie. I've got something I can point to and put my arms around. When this happens, I'll feel like that, and in the meantime, I'll feel like this because of this. So you're tying it together. So there's nothing inherently wrong with that external world, the physical world, and getting results, tangible things that we can see and feel and touch. Use it, leverage it for that feeling. Like, at that point, I'm going to feel this elevated version of the great version that I feel like right now already. Because there's always something else. If you think about the scale of 1 to 10, when 10 is ultimate pleasure and 0 is ultimate pain, or 1 is ultimate pain, that comfort zone in the middle, I often say we want to play the game between where the comfort zone is the lowest and ultimate pleasure is the highest. And the reason why it still goes up and down, so you might say, well, why can't I just be at ultimate pleasure all the time? Well, by the very nature of being at ultimate pleasure all the time, it won't be your ultimate pleasure, because that's where you all the time. You will normalize it. So it always has to be up and down. But the scale of 10 is a scale of 1 to 10. It's arbitrary. But what 10 means can be completely different. I'm at 10 out of 10 now. And what does that look like in the external world is these things. And in 5 years' time, a 10 to me is going to look like these things, but the feeling's still the same.
Yeah, so what we're doing when we set out to feel a 10 is we're setting a new normal, new ground level for the comfort zone, right? Because if you get to the 10, it's exhilarating, and you're there consistently, it becomes a comfort zone. So you raise that scale.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can't stop playing that game, because you grow or you die. There's no, I get to a certain level now, I'm done.
Right.
Just don't think like that. If you think like that, once I get there, everything's okay. If you do get there, then it won't be okay. But you're holding out all your feelings just because you think there's a point which you go past where everything's going to be fine forever. And it's just, that's why it's about continuous playing games, not winning overall games.
Extremely interesting. Yeah. That's I was looking for another perspective, so I think we got there. Thank you for that. I also wrote down something, and this is going to be my takeaway for today. I had an insight while you were speaking that if I can feel the feeling before having the object, do I even need the object anyway? Like what a gift it is that I can actually access and tap into the feeling that I think I want when I get something else. And so, right, my new perspective, my takeaway might be, I don't necessarily want to feel more of the good feelings because I can do that whenever I want. What I really feel like I don't have control over, I need to focus on is getting rid of the bad ones, the ones I might label as bad. And so by nature, if I have no more bad feelings, then I'll feel good more often. And so it's not just playing the game of trying to feel good all the time. It's playing the game of trying not to feel, not trying, but like establishing that I don't have to ever feel bad.
This feeling piece is really important, because the only reason that you know that you want a certain feeling is because you felt it before. And if you felt it before, it must be in you.
You already have it. Yeah.
So why not feel it right now? Absolutely. And the second piece to that is what you just said. I actually listened to a podcast recently around the science of how this works in our minds. I was thinking of it as you kind of described it. For me, it was like a scale of feel bad over here, feel good over here. What I understand it to be is actually it's two scales. One's a happiness and one's an unhappiness. Mm-hmm. You can't just put the happiness up. You've got to put the unhappiness down as well.
Interesting.
So yeah. But like you if you put the happiness up, like your happiness will grow, but it can still feel like shit. I had this bit on Jerry Seinfeld was on something I saw recently, and it's just that classic. It's like, I'm happy when I'm complaining. When I'm miserable,
yes, I saw that. Yeah,
like it's funny, right? Because it's Seinfeld, but that's actually the example of what I'm talking about. Like he actually takes pleasure from being upset.
Yeah,
it's totally possible, right? Like right. in that context, because you've got to find both, and so you've got to know what it is for you in order to get it. That's really important.
Yeah,
you can't just say I want the feeling. I don't think you can say I want the feeling. I'm going to go towards that feeling, because you're constantly like just bouncing off things. You've got to say this feeling is associated to this thing I can actually do.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, I'll see you next week.
Thank you for watching another episode of Truth Seekers. We appreciate your interaction. So please comment, like, subscribe to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want more, check out some of our links. Links to our masterclass, The Achiever's Mindset, and come join our LinkedIn group. And what do you want to see more of? Remember, we're here to share the simple secrets of successful. So help us do that. What do you want to see? What do you want to see more of? Thanks, and see you again next time.